Welcome to Success Weekly with James Tharris, a weekly dose of thought-provoking ideas and helpful tips on improving your mindset. And now, here's your host, James Tharris.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Success Weekly. I'm your host, James Tharris, and today is October 10th, 10/10 of 2017. And wow, where has the year gone? We are just a couple of weeks away from the holiday season beginning. A lot of exciting things going on. Just finished our grand opening celebration here at our Palm Harbor, Florida location for my martial arts school, and it was very exciting. We had a couple of special guests come in from Indianapolis, and a few people enrolled in the program as a result of that, and we've got a few people that started on trial memberships with us as well, so that's kind of nice. Still need a lot more, though, to be able to get to the point where we're breaking even on the business. So it is a slow process, and that kind of leads me into our theme for the day, or discussion for today, which is short-term pain for long-term gain. And it's a success principle that everyone should be thinking about, and we can all be reminded of it, because it's very easy to get comfortable, and comfort is a killer of success. You've got to learn how to stay hungry, and really there's nothing more motivating than losing, or fear of losing, the fear of loss. And so many of us we get comfortable, and we don't want to lose out on anything. We get our lives kind of set in a specific way, and we enjoy the lifestyle that we live, and we get used to it. But that's again, like the movie Rocky. Was it 4 or 5? I think it was Rocky 4, where he was training in all this all these lavish surroundings and things, or maybe that was Rocky 3. I can't remember. Anyway, you should watch both of them. They're very good movies. But that's what the essential message was, and he was. He's surrounded by lavishness, and then by the time we see him in Rocky 5, he's kind of back in the ghetto again, living in his old neighborhood. And then of course he takes on a new fighter that really admired him and wanted to become his protege, and he helps him. And then some other guy steps in and offers him more faster. And the Tommy Gunn is the name of the character, and he kind of gets seduced by this Don King style character, and he basically betrays Rocky Balboa for the sake of money and for the sake of fame and getting a shortcut to victory. And then at the end of the movie, of course, he ends up having to fight Rocky and loses pretty badly in a street fight. So he just basically goes to prove that he still has it, and don't mess with the old man. So I don't know why a lot of people didn't like that movie. I guess because it was kind of in the street, and it was Rocky past his prime, and it didn't have the same kind of feeling to it or whatever. I don't know. I enjoyed it, obviously not as much as the earlier ones, but I thought it was pretty good and had a great message to it. Nonetheless, that's really the topic of today's discussion, is short-term pain for long-term gain. So let me put that into a couple of examples for you. When it comes to food, I absolutely love to eat, as you may have guessed. Not that I'm big by any means, but I really do love to eat. And I really love to eat a variety of different kinds of foods. So I can enjoy salads and steaks as much as I can pies and cakes and candies and ice cream, because I love those things. And pizza, I love those things. Those are delicious foods. So let's get that straight right off the bat. However, those things that I really love, and those in the latter part of what I was telling you about, the sweets, those are things that I love probably more than most people love. But I know that if I just go with what I'm feeling at the moment and take what tastes good and just enjoy a little snack because I've earned it, that's the way we justify these things, that will end up in causing me to gain a lot of weight unnecessarily. So I must stay disciplined, and it's the short-term pain of not eating those things every day that I then give myself Saturday mornings, or Saturday all day. I call it Fatter Day, and I allow myself to eat anything that I want to and as much as I want to. For example, I went to Washington, D.C. a couple of weeks ago and for a seminar, and I stopped on the way in and I picked up one of those big Halloween bags of, well, it wasn't a Halloween bag, no, I take that back. It was one of those, it was kind of a long box of little Almond Joys, and I think it had like 12 of them in there, little mini Almond Joys. And I ate every single one of those within about 10 minutes. They were absolutely delicious. So that was probably the equivalent of, let's say, 4 candy bars. Did I worry about it? Absolutely not, because the rest of that day I was going to eat and drink anything I wanted to. But come midnight of that Saturday night, I shut all that stuff off, and I go back to eating properly, eating some type of protein, usually chicken breast or steak. Very little preparation on it as far as the seasonings and other things go, the accoutrements. So if I have a steak, it's typically just a steak and maybe some pepper sprinkled on it. And I use a little what's called Bragg's amino acids, which gives it a little bit of a salty kind of a steak sauce flavor. It's very good, and especially if it's used sparingly. Or I'll have a chicken breast prepared the same way. And then heapings of vegetables and some fruits. And of course, with my salads, I strictly use vinegar and oil dressing. That's all I use on my salads, unless I'm at a Greek restaurant, in which case I will eat their Greek house dressing, which is typically olive oil and red wine vinegar and some oregano and other spices mixed together. So it's the same thing basically. But that's what I've learned to enjoy. You see, you have to learn how to accept short-term pain to get the long-term gain. So when it comes to giving up the snacks and the other foods like that on the short term, I know that the long-term gain is I'm going to be healthier and I'm going to be thinner, and I can still enjoy those things. There's no need for me to have an Almond Joy every single day and followed by a Snickers bar and followed by something else later in the afternoon. It's just not necessary. And we have to learn how to convince ourselves and reprogram our thinking to believe that it isn't necessary. And I've talked about this a lot, but I'm talking a lot about current events for me. When I left our school in Indianapolis, I was kind of on easy street. I had a very comfortable lifestyle, and if I wanted something, I could just go out and buy it and not think twice about it. It wasn't going to affect our bottom line at all. And if I wanted to invest in some stocks, extra stuff, I would just take $1,000 and buy some stocks with it. Well, now I'm at the point I can't do that at the moment. I have to learn how to scale back and do things for myself instead of paying others to do it. So we have to look at all these types of things. And that's the short-term pain. But the long-term gain is that I get to live in Florida and I get to rebuild a school from scratch, which is very, very challenging, I might add. Having a school for 23 years, it has a certain level of momentum behind it, and it's a lot easier to enroll students when they walk into the school and there are already 20 or 25 people in the classes with them. And when they come back to the second class, and it might be a different day and a different time, they see the exact same thing, and maybe they see 35 or 40 people in the class. So it basically makes a statement that this place is a good place. If it weren't, it wouldn't be so well frequented, and people wouldn't be leaving nice reviews for us on Facebook and on Google and other like Yelp and things like that. What are they called? Review sites. So that's the nice thing about having something like that. When you start in the beginning of anything, and that includes fitness and weight loss or saving money or anything else, there's something called a compound effect that takes place. But that doesn't take place until well after you get started. And so in the beginning, this is where the short-term pain for long-term gain mentality has to come in. You've got to remember that up front in the beginning, it's like pushing a monstrous snowball. And getting it moving takes all of your effort. It takes all of your energy. And just to push it and get it to turn one time takes pretty much everything you've got. But once you get it to turn that one time, The second time it's a little easier to turn, and the third time it's a little easier to turn. And then once you get that thing moving, the momentum of it turning on its own continues to make it easier and easier to push. And all you have to do at that point is just every third or fourth turn, give it a slight nudge so that it continues on its path. And then if you want to really accelerate it, you get behind it again when it comes around and you give it a massive shove and you push it forward even faster. And then you can just follow behind it, and every 5 or 6 revolutions you push it again. Well, that's how everything works. And the same thing with the martial arts school that we're running down here in Florida. When we left our Indianapolis location, it was fully staffed. We had a full-time instructor, we had a full-time office manager, and we had a slew of assistants to help us with every class virtually. There were a class here and there that didn't have any assistants, and I had to teach that occasionally. But for the most part, I didn't have to teach a single class if I didn't want to. But I'm not the kind of person that enjoys to sit back and be comfortable. I want to create. I love to build and create, and that's the reason why if you look at everything that I do, I'm a very creative person. This podcast is another example of that. In addition to doing my podcast, I create daily and weekly videos for my students and Facebook and just for the public at large. I write. I'm an author. I write books on how-to, and I write books on. I've just finished a children's book, my first one, and hopefully that's going to be a series of children's books. I write for magazines, and I write for myself just for the pure enjoyment of it. I love to create things. I love building systems. I love the construction phase of anything, just creating something. And so for me, that's something I've had to keep in mind, and I've been able to do a great job of it, is keeping in mind that it is short-term pain for long-term gain. So again, looking at from a financial perspective, if you wanted to save $1,000 because you want to go on a trip someplace, then the short-term pain is going to be giving up the Starbucks coffee 7 days a week or 6 days per week maybe, and you just have your Starbucks coffee on Saturday mornings, and then the money that you save, let's say if the Starbucks coffee is $5, well, you've got Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Sunday. That's 6 times 5. Well, that's $30 per week. If you take that times a month, that's 3 times 4. That's $120 per month. Well, if you take $120 per month, then you've got a savings of like $1,440 per year. Now, a lot of people claim that they can't afford things. You know, we'll get people that come into the martial arts school that say that they can't afford $159 per month, which is what we charge for our charter memberships at our school. Our actual rate is more $189 to $199 per month, so we're actually doing it for less than that. But think about when somebody says they can't afford $159 per month, and not just for karate lessons, for anything. Think about that for a second. The problem is, in many cases, some cases, no matter what, you just can't afford something. You know, for me, I couldn't afford a Lamborghini right now, no matter how hard I tried. There's just no way it's going to be feasible. So I could want to drive a Lamborghini all day long, but actually signing on the dotted line and being able to either pay for it outright or pay a monthly charge for it, there's just no way I could do that. So that's out of my budget. But if the Lamborghini cost $159 per month, and I'm saying, oh, I can't afford to pay $159 per month, what I would have to do is start looking at, well, what else can I sacrifice that's maybe not serving me well to get this thing or be able to do this thing. In this case, if we're talking martial arts lessons, this is something, a cup of coffee might do you well for an hour or two because it's going to put you in a good mood maybe. It might wake you up and give you some energy, but once that's gone, once you've gotten rid of it through a variety of means, then what do you have to show for it? Absolutely nothing. But if you have something like a martial arts program that you're doing over the course of a year or 2 years or 3 years or the course of your life, well, that's going to pay dividends to you. It's not just going to be something you benefit from that day. It's going to be something that pays dividends to you now and far into the future, something that you'll have invested in that will, again, it will compound, just like saving a penny. If you save a penny over the course of it's a penny per day doubled. So if I could give you $3 million or allow you to take the income from doubling a penny a penny doubled every day, and keep that so like on the first day you'd get 1 penny, on the second day you'd get 2 pennies, on the third day you'd get 4 pennies, on the fifth day you would get 8 pennies, on the sixth day you would get 16 pennies, and so on and so forth. Well, I forget the actual number, but it's somewhere in the neighborhood of $10 million at the end of 30 days. So most people would probably take the $3 million and be happy with that, and that's fine. I mean, $3 million is still nothing to sneeze at. But imagine if you could take that and just take the short-term pain. So the person with the $3 million might be able to afford things right now, which is kind of where our society is. We're a right-now society. We want things now. They might be able to do a lot of things right up front. And the person who's getting the penny doubled every day, for the first 15 or 20 days, he's probably not going to be able to afford much. But starting in that 21st or 22nd day, well, my goodness, it's unbelievable what he or she will be able to spend. It's almost, in fact, it's over 3 times the amount. And that's from the compounding effect. And that's why we have to remember that short-term pain is good if you want long-term gain. You have to be willing to give something up in order to get something else. There's only so much money that goes around for us. There's only so much time that goes around for us. So the same thing goes. If you want to, why do people go to college? Think about that. If they want to become a doctor, and why would somebody want to become a doctor? There's really only 2 reasons I can think of that somebody would want to become a doctor. Number one is they love helping and healing people, and that's probably 50% of the doctors out there. The other half, because it makes them a good paycheck, and so that means that equates it to a good, healthy, happy lifestyle in their mind. And so what are they willing to give up? Well, they're willing to give up $100,000 in college tuition, and they're willing to give up 8 or 16 years of their lives to get their master's or doctorate degree or whatever, so that they can move into that field and then start collecting whatever they're collecting for whatever they're doing. You know, in the medical field, it could be anything, and it's all expensive. So that would be the reason why somebody would go to college. And it doesn't have to be doctors. It could be lawyers. It could be a veterinarian. It could be archaeologist, or it could be literally anything. When you go to college or when you go to a school, the short-term pain is you're going to have to do some studying. You're going to have to sacrifice some personal time with your buddies on the weekends, and you're going to have to put out some additional money, and you're going to lose some additional sleep, and you're going to have to go through the pain of learning something that you don't know anything about, and that's called the learning curve. But that's the short-term pain for the long-term gain. If we don't look at things like that, it's very easy to say, oh my goodness, I could never quit doing this. I could never give up cigarettes. I could never give up drinking coffee. I could never give up eating sweet stuff and snacks. I could never give up potato chips. I could never give up bread. Does any of this sound familiar to you? I could never give up whatever it is. You've got to start rethinking that and say, what am I willing to give up in order to move up? You have to give up to go up. That's the short-term pain for the long-term gain. So, something I wish I had done more when I was younger. I wish that I had saved more money when I was, 10 years old, 11. I went through millions of dollars, and I'm not exaggerating, millions of dollars by the time I was 35 or 40 years old. Millions. If I had just saved, like so many people tell us to do, just 10% of everything that I was making and put that in a bank somewhere, I would be a millionaire right now, and I would be able to afford virtually anything that I wanted to afford, including that Lamborghini. But see, back when you're a child and you can't see the long term, you can't look forward to the future and say, I can see how this is going to benefit me when I'm 40 years old or 50 years old or 60 years old or 70 when I'm ready to retire. We don't think like that. We only think about what's happening here and now, and that is what holds us back. It's what holds us back in all of our life. Every area of our lives. So I want you to really, this is your call to action today after listening to this, is to sit back and think, how comfortable are you right now? And are you ready to make a move upward? And if the answer is yes, you want to make a movement upward, you've got to stop and list out everything that you're spending money on and weigh it out and say to yourself, okay, what can I do without and what can I not do without? Now, a gym membership you can do without, and I'll tell you why you can do without it. Because you can work out in your home. You can do push-ups, you can do sit-ups, and if you live in Florida or California, you can run, you can bike, you can hike. You've got zero excuses for not being able to exercise. You do not need a gym membership. On the other hand, if you're going to a college, a school of some kind, and that is for your betterment of your financial future, and that's going to require you some money. Don't look at that and say, oh, well, I can't afford to do that because I don't want to do that because it's stressful and I don't like the way I feel going in there, not knowing what I'm doing and coming out, even more stressed out than when I went in. That's the short-term pain you have to be willing to endure to get to the other side. And on the other side of all of that pain that you're enduring, and that's mental pain, emotional pain, financial pain, sometimes physical pain, whatever it is, on the other side of all of that pain, and you're enduring it, you're being persistent and persevering through that, is going to be your success, and whatever that means for you. So if it's a physical thing, it's going to be getting in better shape, and when you're in better shape, you feel better about yourself. When you feel better about yourself, you make better decisions. When you make decisions based on fear, you don't often make the best decisions, and they're decisions that you usually regret later on. So that's why it's important to take care of your mental health and your physical health as well. And so a gym may or may not do that for you, but it's not necessary to be in a gym to get the benefits of that. You can do those things for free or virtually free. A bicycle might cost you a little bit of money, but walking certainly doesn't cost you any money. You've already got shoes. You don't necessarily need a good pair of running or walking shoes. If need be, you walk in the grass someplace, and you do it with the shoes you've got on your feet. Or you can go to a place like Goodwill and buy a nice pair of shoes for virtually nothing. So there's always a way around it, and we've got to learn to stop making excuses and telling ourselves and lying to ourselves that we can't do without X, Y, and Z. And that's the reason why we can't have A, B, and C. You've got to convince yourself otherwise. And the way that you do that is, like I said, you sit down and you really think about what is this product or service or activity contributing to my life? Is it contributing good things to my life? If that's the case, I say stick with it. If it's not contributing good things to your life, or the very short-term good things, again, like a high from a caffeine, that can be gotten. You can brew your own coffee, or you can go down to McDonald's instead of going to Starbucks. Go to McDonald's. I am personally not a coffee drinker. I'm a coffee smeller. I love the smell of coffee, but I've never ever liked the taste of it. So I've been told that McDonald's or Dunkin' Donuts also makes pretty good coffee. Maybe not as good as Starbucks, but then think about that. And so that's a way you could make some concessions. So instead of giving up the entire $5 coffee, you could still save maybe $2.50 by getting a $2.50 cup of coffee from McDonald's or from Dunkin' Donuts. I don't know what they cost. I'm just using very simple math there. And then at least you're still able to save $2.50 per day, which if it was $1,440 per year, you'd be at least able to save $520 per year. Still worth doing, right? So there are ways around it. The best bet, though, is to completely cut that stuff out of your life and learn to replace it with more healthy drinks like water, for instance. Same thing goes with your Diet Cokes and your soft drinks and your Sprites. You have to do the very same thing there, and look at how much you're spending on those things. And if you stop doing that and just get regular water, and I would recommend buying a water filter of some kind that you can use tap water and just filter it and not spend all this money on bottled water, because it's just as expensive as the soft drinks are. So better than that, it's just regular filtered water. I use a couple of water filters. One of them is called Clearly Filtered, and I think you can go to clearlyfiltered.com. I should be getting some kickback from these guys for the shout out to them. And that's just a little sport water cooler that you can put water into it and screw it on. It's got a filter built into it, and as you suck the water out of the bottle, it goes through the filter and cleans your water for you. Supposedly you can put lake water in it and drink. Never tried it, but it'd be nice to know in the zombie apocalypse that I could do that with this water filter bottle. And it's fairly expensive. It's like a $50 bottle, and it lasts for 6 to 12 months. Well, contrast that with how many bottles of water you'd have to buy, and half those bottles of water you buy are just tap water that haven't even been filtered. Start thinking about that and doing the math. It's worth investing in something like that. The other filter I have in my house is a gravity-fed filter, which means you dump the water in the top, and then there are these big filters that the water runs through, and it takes out all the impurities, and then in the bottom of the filter is the spigot, and you release the water into your cup or whatever you're using it for. And that one is it's called ProPure, and I've got the ProPure King or something like that. It was a $200 or $300 investment, and then I have to once a year or once every other year replace the filters for about $125. But again, I can filter hundreds and hundreds of gallons of water through that, and it's cleaner and better than anything you're going to get in a store. So that's a way that I've been able to save money on purchasing water all the time. And then I can turn that water into Sun tea. I don't even need to get any special contraptions for it or go buy expensive tea. I can go down and buy those little 49-cent tea bags and then use my filtered water, put it in a jar, and put 2 or 3 of those tea bags in there and set it out back, and bang, I've got myself some of the best iced tea you could ever have. And so you've got to convince yourself. So one of the things that I did early on in my life, fortunately for me, was I was a big avid drinker of sweet tea, and the more sugar in it, the better it was. Because I told you I love sugar, I love sweet things. So I drank all the time. I drank sweetened tea. But one day I decided, and I believe I was about 23 years old, I decided that I was going to force myself to enjoy unsweetened tea because I knew that it was going to be better for my health and the health of my joints and things, and so that's what I did. And to this day, I no longer drink sweetened tea. In fact, I can't even stand it. So even on fatter days, I stay away from it. I still drink unsweetened iced tea with a lemon slice in it, so for a little flavor. So my message here is there's ways around everything, and you've got to be willing to give up the short term for the long term. So again, think of the phrase short-term pain for long-term gain. You know, if we're talking about physical fitness in a gym, by the way, when you go in there and you lift weights with your legs, nobody likes leg day because it's the hardest workout you're going to do. But if you're sitting on that leg press and you start to, let's say you're using the quadricep press, the tops of your legs, and you put your feet underneath the little cushion and you start to lift it up and you lift the weights up and it starts to make your legs burn. Well, the burn is the short-term pain. The burn that you're going to feel in your legs for the next 2 to 3 days to 4 days, that's going to be the short-term pain, provided you lifted enough weight to make it hurt. The long-term gain is you're going to feel better, you're going to have a better-looking body, and your legs are going to be stronger, and they're going to thank you for that by growing stronger. So the long-term gain is all of that. And is it worth the short-term pain? I say yes, it is. Now again, you don't need a gym membership to get that. You can get a very similar feel in your quads at least by riding a bicycle. And if you buy these little clips that they have for the pedals, you can get even a good hamstring workout as well. So there's always ways around that. And a gym membership is kind of a perpetual $20 to $30 unless you're doing the $10 per month at, I think, Planet Fitness. But $10 per month times 12 is that's like $120 per year. If you get yourself a nice bicycle, you could get one used for probably $50 and get those clips on there for another $50. And so for $100 that you'd spend in a year's time in a gym membership, you've got yourself a bike that's probably going to last you for 20 years or more, and it's a one-time expense. So you see, it's all the way that you frame it in your mind. You've got to convince yourself of certain things that you think you need, and you've got to convince yourself that you don't really need these things. They're not doing you as much good as you think they're doing. In fact, they might be doing you some harm. So learn how to look objectively at everything in your life, all of your financial expenses, all of the things you put into your body, all of the things you put into your mind. I mean, again, is it necessary for you to go to a concert every weekend and spend $50 to $100 or $200 to go see your favorite band? I mean, you could turn the TV on and watch them. It's not going to be as exciting as going to the live event. Same thing going to a live sporting event. It's always better in person, but in the short term, maybe that's not in your best interest to be spending and splurging that extra bit of money on those things, because you might be able to use that money to pay some bills. You might be able to use that money to get further your education or do something good for yourself that's going to pay dividends down the line a little bit. So anyway, that's my message for today. Short-term pain for long-term gain. Until next week, this is James Theris saying be successful.
That's all for this week. Tune in next week for another episode of Success Weekly. Do you have an idea you'd like James to talk about in an upcoming episode? Post your comments and be sure to share this podcast with friends.